There has to be something about you that managed to build some of the best fighters in the world, getting people to championships.
Javier Mendez, one of the best MMA coaches in the world, known for coaching and mentoring multiple MMA world champions like Khabib, Islam, Luke Rockhold, Daniel Cormier, and Cain Velasquez.
I told Khabib, he's going to come after your family. He's going to come after your country. He's going to come after your religion. He's going to come after your father.
What about McGregor?
As a fighter, he's done horrible. I don't know what he's doing with his life, but he wasn't doing the right track to keep him on par to what got him there.
What could the everyday person learn from the mindset of a champion?
Your best is going to come from consistency.
What don't they tell us?
The number one thing is...
Javier, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you because I believe that there's so many lessons behind what you do for the average Joe, for the parent, for the teacher, for a leader in a company, for anybody trying to build a team. I think you have a roster of skills because of the champions that you have built throughout your career and making yourself a champion too. This comes from the perspective of you as a champion. We can talk about that. You as a coach and the people that have built your character along the way. So I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to share, whatever information that I have that could be useful for the people that are listening, your fans. It would be great honor for me to be able to give my version of how I do things.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things that I want to touch on. That let's start way back when. So there are certain people in your life that kind of shaped your mindset of what it would entail to build world-class champions, for better or for worse. So for better, let's say, I came across your first coach. You were talking about him. Let me just get his name out. Was it Pops?
Yeah, Pops. Walter Pops.
Walter
Yeah.
Pops.
Carvalho.
Okay.
Walter Carvalho. Yes.
So let's touch on that for better. What are the lessons that you learned from Walter Pops?
Well, I learned that with him, anybody can be anything they want to be. I learned that through him, you can motivate somebody to a highest extreme. And I learned through him that there's a limit to how you motivate somebody. He would motivate you to the point where he would say, anybody he trained, didn't matter who he trained, you're going to make you a world champion. I'm going to make you a world champion. Well, for me, logic didn't dictate that you would be a world champion because you just don't have the skill set or you didn't have the mindset to enter this arena. So for me, I was thinking, Pops, why do you always keep saying, yeah, be a world champion? I'm going to train you. You're the best, whether it be female or male. Didn't matter. They're going to be the best. So I was looking and I go, Pops, there's something good about what he's doing because everybody always get all pumped up. So I took the good of what he did, not the actual truth, the good. And the good was good energy. And it motivates people. So I learned that from him. There was a big, big lesson to this day I still use.
Yeah, you talked about, I think, I came across you saying how when, shit hits the fan, he would kind of stay behind you. He would kind of support as opposed to turn his back on someone who's failed him as a coach. Is that a big lesson that you took from him, maybe?
That's a big lesson. Also a huge lesson is because, you're taught to love your fighters, to take care of your fighters, that no matter what happens, it's okay. You're there for them.
Is that the common thing across the board, or most of the time you don't see that?
I don't see too much of that. Don't do too much of that. You're seeing more of it now, but back in the days when I was fighting, you didn't see much of that. It was kind of like that. A lot of the coaches would turn on you a little bit, And,
wow.
And now I think you see more compassion than ever before, but back then it wasn't like that.
What has changed? Do you think it's a social construct that has changed?
I think it's the coaching, the new coaching style that's coming up, the new breed of coaches. They're all getting to that point where they're learning to understand their fighters more and becoming more compassionate towards their needs, versus what the coach needs. We can't look at this as what I need. We have to look at it, what does the fighter need? What does he need for you to help him to get better? And that's the things that a lot of coaches haven't been able to master or get the idea of that. What are we going to do to help him get better? Not what you think he needs to get better, what he feels, what he knows that he needs to get better. You got to show them what it is that they need to get better. And from that point, that's where you start building a platform, a strong base with your fighter.
So, I mean, I said at the beginning that you kind of learn for better or for worse. Someone can be a role model for you, whether it's for better or for worse. So assume Pops was your role model for better in certain aspects. But then you have somebody in your life, like you mentioned your father, who, for worse, pushed you to be the person you are today.
Yeah.
How did that work?
Well, it worked this way. I wanted my father to be proud of me.
Yeah.
And my father was basically, he came from Mexico over the, we came to United States, and he was just a laborer. He was a forklift driver for a cannery place. And all he was, he fed us. We were on welfare the majority of my, teenage life, and he was not a good father in the sense that he would ask me, hey, how'd you do in school today? Or did he even care if I went to school? I don't think he actually cared, to be honest with you, whether I went to school or not, but he cared about me, and I know he loved me and in our family, but he wasn't, the type of father that would, you better go to school, you better do this, you better do that, none of that. How's your grades? Nothing. He never spent any time with me. He didn't do anything with me. But I wanted my father to be proud of me. And those are some of the things that mattered to me back then. But then when my father was saying negative things for me, like, for instance, when I was 12 years old, I did something really bad where I stole from a store, right? And I come home with the police. They bring me home, and knock on the door, and my father opens the door, and they told him, blah, 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 your son was caught for shoplifting and this and that. And all of a sudden, my father just looks at me and goes, well, you did well. That's all he said. You did well. I stayed in my room. I didn't want to come out. And from that point in my life, I never, ever again, ever even thought about taking anything from a store.
But why would he say you did well?
He was sarcastic. He was saying, like, you're a dingbat, why'd you do that? He didn't scold me, he didn't hit me, nothing, didn't talk to me about it.
It's just the idea of disappointing him.
The idea of disappointing him just made me so upset with myself that I never, ever again, did it ever again. Never. I was always honest the rest of my life from that point on. I never wanted to be anything disrespectful, dishonest, or cheater, or stealer, or anything of that nature, because I didn't want to be that person. It really bothered my conscience.
How old are you here, 12?
I was 12.
Wow, for you to have thought that far at 12, that's... because there's a lot of people out there, I mean, they probably don't have the affirmations and the validation from their parents, and they're waiting for the validation for them to make something out of themselves. You decided to make something out of yourself in the hopes of getting validation.
Yes, yeah. I was basically trying to be good, and I was good, and I was very happy being good. I didn't want to be bad. I didn't want to cause problems. Back when we were kids, they'd go out there, kids would go out there doing knock on doors and run, right? And they'd try to get me involved to go knock on the doors and run. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to people. I couldn't go knock on the doors and go running off. But my friends would do it, and it got to the point where they did that to this one particular house, and this is where it comes really bad, where something you do to think is funny, it turns out to be not so funny. Right. So they would go and knock on someone's door all the time and run, okay? And then they would do things like they'd let the air out of the guy's tires, okay? And the person would be very, very upset, and I would never partake in any of that. But then all of a sudden, after the second time they let the air out of the guy's tires, he died. Oof. Yeah, he had a heart attack while I was pumping the air back in his tire.
And what your friends, what was their take after that?
I don't remember. I don't remember what their thought was. I just know he died, and I was like, I felt like, wow. That's the repercussions that happens when you do something like that. You know, there's always something in it when you do something bad, that there's a response that's going to happen back that's negative, and that was the negativity of it. Maybe it would have been another situation. I'll give you another one that was a negative. Is I had a friend of mine. We were out playing in the schoolyard, and there was this person walking by who was on drugs. You know, and my friend started making fun of him. And of course, not me. I would never do that. So he grabbed my friend by the neck and he took him with him. You know, and I was just like, you know, at that time, I think I was 11 years old when this happened. So my eyes got all wide, like, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You know, so I ran to his house. I told him, hey, this guy next behind us that lived on the next street grabbed, you know, Manuel, and he took him with him. So they went out looking for him, and they went to the person's house, broke in that house. They couldn't find him in there. And the next day, they found Manuel. You know, he was, you know, in the river. Basically, what happened is, not the river, like what do you call it? A little lake-like, you know, man-made lake, river-like. Not a river, but like a lake, anyways.
Like a lagoon?
Yeah, like a little creek. Sorry,
Yeah.
creek. I wanted the creek.
Yeah.
He was in a creek, and what happened is this person got a rock and smashed him on the head, you know, and was going to try to kill Manuel. And Manuel, so he had some martial arts training. He did a back fist on him, and he ran across, swam across, and saved himself. But yeah, so this is a situation that happened all because he was making fun of the guy, and the guy was on drugs. You know, and that's, you know, I learned all these things that, you know, those actions cause reactions that aren't good sometimes, and why do something like that? So I learned early on those kind of things that shouldn't be done.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a heavy, actually, heavy lesson. Okay, so you've been a champion back in your day. You have one of the biggest kickboxing academies in the world. Are you still owner there, AKA?
Yes.
And you've coached some of the best fighters in the world, right? You have Frank Shamrock, BJ Penn, Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier, and obviously the most recent ones, Khabib and Islam. There has to be something about you that managed to build some of the best fighters in the world, getting people to championships, to the best of the world. And my question to you is, do you feel like it is the world champion in them that found you, or you found them in a sense where you built the world champion in them?
I think I was fortunate to have a lot of people around me that brought people to me. You know, Khabib came through one of my other champions, King Mo Lawal, you know, Muhammad Lawal. He brought him over when he asked me if he can, you know, if there's a brother of his that wants to come train with us, it was okay. I said, yeah, for you, anybody. So that's how Khabib came. So that wasn't something I recruited or thinking about, well, this person could be somebody. No, it was something that came through other people. One in particular fighter that I had named Luke Rockhold, you know, he came into my gym just to try it out. And I saw champion material in him right away. So I went after him.
So what does that look like? What does champion material look like? Is it a talent, or is it technical, or is it mental?
It's a talent and it's mental. It's a talent and mental, you know, and the technical part, that's our job.
Yeah.
We're supposed to give them that. But the talent has to be there. The mental has to be there. Those two qualities have to be there. So that's what you do, look into somebody to see, okay, does this person have the mental and the talent? And sometimes just the mental is good enough. One of my fighters named John Fitch became a world champion, but not because he was super talented, because he was super stubborn and will stay disciplined and stay consistent and never gave up on himself, you know. So you can be somebody without having that super talent also. I didn't pick him to be anything great, but he became actually one of the top individuals in the UFC and the welterweight division. You know, at one point he was number one ranked, you know, and he fought for the title against Georges St. Pierre. And he lost, but he gave him a great fight, you know, but still he got to that point, to that level, because he never gave up on himself.
Do you think, you know, there's a saying, hustle beats talent if talent doesn't hustle. So can your mindset really take you so far if you're talented and you're not really working that hard versus not talented, but your mindset is so on point? Do you think your mindset can actually make you beat someone who's talented?
Your mindset can absolutely get you to be someone that's talented. John Fitch is a perfect example of that. He beat a lot of individuals that were a lot more talented than he was, but he just stuck to the grind. And
what was special about his mindset?
He just for instance, there was a point in his journey when he was growing up with us as a fighter that he didn't have no one to train with. He had literally the best training partner for him was a one-legged guy. And he did the best because the person that didn't have one leg, and there was nobody else there for him to actually train with, at that particular time, because we were all doing other things, and I think we were an Ultimate Fighter or something like that. But he only had one person to train with, and it was mostly the best guy was a one-legged guy who was pretty good, But again, he didn't have a wide assortment of fighters to train with because they were gone at that particular time, and he didn't give up on himself. He just stuck to what he needed to do, and that's basically the perseverance of someone that doesn't quit on himself no matter what odds are against him. He's the kind of individual that, when the Ultimate Fighter came out, the very first one that brought everything to where it is now with the UFC, he was one of the people selected. He was one of the people selected to be on the show. When he was at the airport, his luggage was already put in the baggage to take, right? He gets the call while he was at the airport ready to go. They say, we won't be needing you. So can you imagine the hardship and the heartbreak that he had to go through? You're there, you're told, we don't need you. Pack up, go home. He basically stuck to the grind. He said, that's fine. I'm going to get in anyways. And he did. He got in. He got in through winning, through mental preparation and hard work.
So what are the biggest sacrifices you feel these elite fighters need to make? So there's a lot of things behind the scenes, like the story you just told me. People don't see in the octagon, right? They don't know what is happening. They don't know what the mental and physical and emotional sacrifice you need to make. What do you think is the most common and consistent sacrifice that has to be made across all these elite fighters?
Well, they all have to sacrifice their time. Their time, meaning that they have to stay consistent with their training. They can't, let's say your wife, your girlfriend, they say, or let's say you're a girl fighter and then your boyfriend says, hey, let's go out to dinner tonight. It's our special day. And you're training for a fight. Well, guess what? You can't go. You cannot go. It's the same thing like someone studying for the college exam, getting ready for the test, and all of a sudden you decide to take 2 days out with your friends. You can't go. Not if you're going to ace that test. You can't go. So those are the sacrifices that are being made because you're going to work. You got to look at it like work. You can't miss days of work and expect to get, a good, salary, number one. Number two, you can't expect to get good results where you keep your job. You have to stay consistent. So everything related to fighting is you have to give up your time. You can't go do the fun things you want to do. You can't go play sports on the weekend for fear of getting hurt, because if you get hurt, then you have a contract with your promotion, and you're in your contracts it states you can't do these kind of physical activities because it could jeopardize the fight if you get injured. So there's a lot of time that you can enjoy yourself with that you can't use, because if you do, you could end up costing yourself, your payday, your fight, and it's not a good thing.
They say work-life balance, if you're achieving greatness, is the biggest scam ever. It doesn't really exist. The people that are chasing greatness have to sacrifice something, which is what you're talking about. You can't have a work-life balance, like a little bit of play, a little bit of going out, a little bit of dinner, and then also training hard for the championship. Most people that achieve greatness don't have a work-life balance. It's all in and then break. Do you agree in that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, you have to be consistent. If you're not consistent, you can't get the best results. There is some people that can manage to win a world title and they will maybe not do the things that they should do, but at the very end, they fall quicker than they would have had to stay consistent. One particular boxer that I will name is named Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins stayed clean. He stayed, eating right, training right his whole life. This individual won a world title at age 49 years of age, retired at age 51 in boxing.
Wow.
Yeah. And why? Because he's basically mentally disciplined and he stayed healthy. this whole time. So
Yeah.
he didn't do those things. You know, he stayed in shape all the time, and that's
What
what's
about
important.
like McGregor, who's the opposite of that?
He's completely the opposite, and look where he's at. He's a perfect example of somebody that, as a fighter, not as a businessman. As a businessman, we know he's done fantastic, you know. But as a fighter,
Like in showbiz.
as a fighter, he's done horrible lately. When he started getting that
Yeah.
parties in the way, doing whatever he's got. I don't know what he's doing with his life, but he wasn't doing the right track to keep him on par to what got him there.
Yeah, absolutely. So how much does mental toughness have to do with getting to where you want to be in any capacity?
You know,
And can you train for mental toughness?
you can train for mental toughness, and how you do it is repetition, the consistency, repetition. So basically, okay, let me give you the Conor situation with Khabib when Khabib was going to fight him. I basically, right when that fight was signed, I told Khabib, he's going to come after your family. He's going to come after your country. He's going to come after your religion. He's going to come after your father. You can't let him win. You cannot let him win these wars. He's playing the art of war, and he's playing the dirty art of war. So, but you can't let him win, because any chance you let him win is going to give him an opportunity come fight time. So you have to mentally beat this guy all the way through. So I kept repeating that to him over and over and over again, repeatedly, over and over. Remember, he's going to come after your family. He's going to come after your religion, your wife. And he did every one of those things. I said, he may even come after me. He'll come after your manager. He did all those except me. He didn't come after me.
How come? Why do you think?
There was not much on me. You know, I knew that. I knew there's not much that I do that's bad. So, you know, he couldn't. The worst thing he's ever said about me, he called me a fat arse kickboxer. But he said that much years later. You know,
Right.
he called me a fat arse kickboxer. But I thought it was funny because I was fat, so he wasn't wrong. You know, so I'm like, yeah, he wasn't wrong. But he's not a good person, this guy. But he's very famous, and
Do you think he does it for show, or he actually is? He is like that.
I think he is that way. I hate to say it. I think he is that way. I don't think that's a show. How can you continue to be a show? And another thing too, how does someone punch a guy that's sitting in the bar because he won't drink your beer that you offered him? He punched him square in the jaw. You know, when the guy wasn't even looking, he punched him. How do you do that? And then how do you throw a drink on somebody because he refused to take a picture with you? He did that. The Machine Gun Kelly, he threw a drink at him. I saw it. He threw a drink on him because the guy didn't want to take a picture with him. How do you do that? You're a good person? No, I'm sorry. You're not a good person. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe you're a great athlete at one time, or maybe this, maybe that. Maybe you're generous to your wife and your kids. Okay, but are you really a good person? No. No, not when you do things like that. I'm sorry. I could never say that someone that does that is a good person. I can say he wants to be a good person. Yes, but is he a good person? I can say no.
And that's behind, I mean, that's off cameras with the examples you're just giving me. So it's not for show. This is just what he's doing on a day to day. So let's go back to what we talked about on mental toughness. When you were prepping Khabib for what he could endure from Conor, do you feel like he broke at some point because of what he said?
That Khabib broke? I think at the very end of the fight, yeah, I think so, because he jumped the cage and went after his coaches. And I never asked him, believe it or not, I never asked him why he did that till a couple of years after. I said, Khabib, why did you go after the cage? And why did you go after Dylan Dennis? He goes, well, coach, because you know, his head coach, you know, it was too old and it would be disrespectful. So I had to go after Dylan. He was more my age. So I said, I was respect. Even in his anger, you know, he went after Dylan. Yeah, he thought he couldn't touch the coach. He had to go after the younger one, and that was Dylan Dennis. And Dylan was the one that was talking the most stuff anyway. So he was egging Khabib on through the whole fight. So you know, he did that because number one, the coach is too old and he couldn't attack him. So he went after the second one. Yeah.
Wow. So you talk about the Dagestani mentality and how you know, they're all about discipline and faith and culture, and there's something about Khabib that is very grounded. I mean, for anybody who watches him, how he speaks, you know, even if someone tries to diss another fighter in an interview, and then he's always like, "No, I'm so sorry," but just give him his moment. Let him, you know. Don't take that away from him. Like, he says this a lot in interviews if somebody's trying to diss another fighter or a champion that had just won some sort of belt. So What do you think about that mentality?
Well, that mentality that he has is the reason why he's one of the greats, and he will continue to be one of the greats, because it's what I always tell him earlier on in 2012, when he started to speak a little bit of English. I would tell him, I don't know what you're here for, but there's a reason why you're here. And I said, just like Muhammad Ali, I consider Muhammad Ali the greatest, not because of what he did inside the ring, is what he did outside. And there's something about you. I can't put my finger on it right now, but there's something about you, because you're also Muslim and you have a huge, basically a Muslim community, and I think there's something about you, and I don't know what it is, but now here we are, present day, and now we see why it is, because what he does, everything he does is the way you should be as a Muslim man, as a believer in your faith. He's through and through 100%, everything you're supposed to be.
A lot of the Muslim fighters have that exact same mentality. They all are very strong in their faith when they're fighting as well, because you kind of see this across the board. A lot of them are really, really faithful. And I don't know how it translates. Maybe people think it's a discrepancy between going into the octagon and fighting versus having that kind of faith. What do you think it is about the culture and the sport?
Well, for them, the culture is like, for them, it's when they're done training, they go hang out with their family or their brothers, and they're eating with each other. And if they do any kind of games, it's like a football game or any kind of, maybe Dagestan basketball type thing. They don't go out and party. They don't drink. They don't smoke. They don't do any of that stuff. They stay to the core, just disciplined, and that's their lifestyle. That's not something that after they're fighting, they're going to go out and party. They don't do that. They're not going to ever do that, because that's not who they are. That's not what their religion is all about. They're core to the religion. They have their faith, and they stick to it. It's their guide for why they are who they are. And that's not going to change them ever. It's going to make them great as they can be, but at the same time too, when they're done with their fighting, they're still going to be that same person. They're not going to change. Yeah,
I think that's pretty key, because what their faith offers them is, it's based on discipline and structure and staying grounded all the time. And I feel like it really translates very well into building the champion in them through the UFC, of course. So, egos, emotions, injuries, how much of that is on you to mitigate when a fighter is going through that? And how do you go about it? How do you manage people's emotions and their egos and their injuries when they hit rock bottom at some point?
Well, you have to communicate with them. That's number one. Number two, you have to have order. I'll give you an example. Let's say Khabib. Khabib is a world champion already, and he has a fight coming up. Okay, he's a superstar already, and he's in my gym. And his fight is like, he starts camp 2 months out, and there's another fighter that's below him, way, way below him, but his fight's in 1 month. Priority doesn't go to Khabib because he's a superstar. Priority goes to that other fighter who's got his fight coming up first. So that his fight's coming up first. So that means that he can have the right of refusal if he wants to spar first or second or third or whatever lineup he wants. He gets to choose. Khabib doesn't get to choose. If I let Khabib come in and choose because he's the bigger star, then it's going to go crazy. So I don't allow that. And the other thing, what I do when it comes to their injuries and whatnot, I tell them all, I say, listen, you guys, if you're coming in here and you have an injury, you don't let us know about it. It's a big no-no, because the injury could get worse while you guys are sparring, and you have to let us know about your injuries, and you have to let us know if you're tired, you didn't get enough sleep the night before, you had a fight with your girlfriend or your wife, because if you don't tell us that and you come in with anger already and you got your mind elsewhere, you're going to go into a situation where it's dangerous and you can get hurt, and I don't need you guys getting hurt before your big fights. If you have something like this, if you don't want to spar, if you had a bad night sleep, or you argue with your girlfriend or your wife, don't spar. Please do not spar. Let me know, because if you don't, things could happen bad. So now that you're hearing this little story, okay, let me give you an example. What happened? We had a situation where Khabib was, I was running out of sparring partners for him, and that particular day, and I was looking around, there was nobody there, but there was this one fighter named Andre Filo, and I said, Andre, you want to spar Khabib? And he goes, yes. So I'm like, okay, great. So I had him spar with Khabib, and within about 15 seconds, when they started sparring, Khabib picked him up and slammed him on the ground. He dislocated his shoulder blade, shoulder. And I'm like, oh, darn it. So anyways, Andre's like so upset at himself. He goes, man, I should have listened to you. I go, what do you mean you should have listened to me? He goes, I didn't want to spar, but I did anyways because I never thought you'd let me spar with Khabib ever again. I go, wow. Yeah, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I go, you should have told me. Then you could have ever always sparred him again.
But why didn't he want to? Was it an injury issue, or was it just like he wasn't ready?
He just wasn't really ready mentally. He didn't want to spar. He didn't want to spar. It was no injury. He just didn't want to.
Spar him?
Yeah.
Spar
no,
Khabib.
anybody. He didn't want to spar.
Oh, okay,
no,
I see.
it's just because it was Khabib. He thought he'd never get to spar. He never sparred him, ever.
Yeah.
You know, so he was like, wanting to spar Khabib. I mean, it's a big honor for him to spar with someone, a world champion. He was a world champion at that time, so it was a great thing for him. But you know, it didn't work out in his favor because he shouldn't have done it because his mind wasn't there.
Yeah.
When you are in that cage, octagon, ring, you have to be mentally ready. You can't let distractions affect you because they will affect you.
How do you train people for that? How do you train people to stay, you know, with it, you know, and not get distracted?
Well, you have to find out who they are and what they're doing, you know, in their lives, you know, and you got to talk to them. If you don't talk to them, you're not going to know. If you just assume, you know, the assumption is going to be potentially wrong. You can't assume. You got to talk.
So are you for vulnerability and openness, or more you know, tough love kind of coaching?
I'm more for vulnerability. I'm more for that. Then
is it easy to get that out of, you know?
No.
I can imagine.
No, it's not that easy. It's tougher. I'd rather have that and work on building that situation, the mindset. Because when you have tough love, then that means they're gonna tough it out. They're gonna do a situation where something is gonna be injured, and they're not gonna tell you. Okay, I'll give you the perfect example. What happened? Umar, Khabib's cousin, for his title fight. You know, he broke his hand in the very first round. He didn't tell us. He did not tell us. He did not tell Khabib or I or other coaches that he broke his hand. So there's a situation.
And he kept going.
Yeah, he kept going. He kept going. And we didn't know. We had no idea. He had zero
idea.
idea.
Did he know, or was he like adrenaline?
He knew. He knew he broke his hand. He just didn't tell us, and that's what I'm talking about. That was one of those situations where I'd rather have vulnerability and let me know, Coach, I broke my hand, right? Versus tough it out. That was a tough out moment, and that's why I told you it's not easy. It's very, very hard. You know.
Do you feel like you take responsibility for their failures, or you think it's on them?
Well, when I started earlier in my career, you know, fighters interviewers would ask me questions. Why did so-and-so not do this? And I would put it on them. I would say, well, I don't know. They know what they were doing. I can't tell you why they didn't do what they did. And then an altercation happened between me and one of my fighters. And he said, why did you say this? Why did you say that? I go, well, it was the truth. I told the truth. You didn't do that. He goes, you know, but coach is supposed to protect us. Why are you throwing us underneath the bus? And I went,
that hit home.
That hit home. I went, dang it, he's so right. I was throwing him underneath the bus. I was telling the truth. So if you ask me a question, I'm gonna tell you the truth. But I didn't protect my fighter. What I should have done was take the blade myself, you know, and that's what I've learned from a fighter. He taught me that, you know, take the blame, even because you're the coach, you should know these things. And if you don't know, then you should have known. So I take that responsibility upon myself.
I love that so much because it shows such humility from your side as well. Because you could also go on the defense and say, no, that's all you. Like, don't blame me. This is not my business. But the fact that you're willing to take the learnings from them as well is such a key thing.
It is. It is. It's just very important for you to grow too as a coach, to accept you're not perfect. You can learn from everybody. And I've learned from friends of mine that come into the gym that don't even know anything about fighting, zero. And they come in, they're watching the sparring, and they say, I know it's none of my business, but shouldn't he be doing this? And they're looking at me like, oh, I didn't mean to say. I go, no, you're right. I go, I didn't pick that up. Well, I don't know why I didn't pick it up, but you picked it up. So you're very correct in your assumption of why he should be doing this. Why is he doing that? And I said, yeah, you're right. So I've learned from that also that don't think that just because a fan's watching, he doesn't know what he's saying. Listen to what they're saying. There might be some value in it, So I listen to everybody.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that you always have like one star fighter, right? Like at a time. So let's say is Islam now your star fighter? Would you? Is it fair to say that or no?
No, not with me.
Okay,
only because we have too many. So
you have too many.
Yeah, we have too many.
Because I wonder if it's always the case where there is possibly the better of them all, and then maybe your other fighters feel like they're in somebody else's shadow. So, for example, did Islam ever feel in Khabib's shadow, or does somebody else ever feel in Islam's shadow?
I don't think so. I don't think so, but it's possible. It's possible. I mean, I try not to have that. That's why we do the thing where I was saying if you're the priority fighter, you're the champion fighter, you don't get treated like that unless it's your time. So let's say Islam, like you mentioned, with Islam, when it was his time, he too would ride above Khabib. Because if his fight was before Khabib's, he gets preference over Khabib.
Okay.
So there's...
You never...
So that was a proven method that still to this day we will always use.
Okay.
It worked out really well for us. And like when Khabib came over to us, back 2012, he took a lot of the knowledge of how we ran our gym, brought it back to Dagestan, and we brought things from Dagestan to the USA. So it's kind of, we collaborated back and forth. Now both gyms don't really need each other, especially Team Khabib with the hungry fighters, the amount of fighters that they have. They don't need anything from me anymore other than the respect level that they have for me. But it's all taken from each other.
He came to you for the skill set of kickboxing, right?
No, he came to me for the team aspect of wrestling, because we had wrestling. We had a very good wrestling program for our fighters with Daniel Cormier, who was the head wrestling coach for us at that particular time. So he came for the wrestling.
Okay, I see. Let's try to take this back to the everyday people. So what could the everyday person learn from the mindset of a champion?
Well, the everyday person can learn from the mindset, let's say...
And the mindset of a coach building somebody else that's working for them, or building a team, for example. What could they learn?
Well, they can learn that consistency creates results, and consistency creates positive results. So, for instance, if you're in school and you're there on time, okay, you're not late for class. So if you're not late for class, you're not missing any of the assignments that will be given to you. So you're ahead of the schedule. You're on point. You do your assignments like you're supposed to, day in, day out. Don't miss anything. You're always going to do better than the individual that doesn't. So you always know that your best is going to come from consistency. It's not going to come from, I'm so talented, I can do this and do that without even studying this and that. You can, but if you did more of the consistency type situation, you're going to do much better. So consistency is the key in life. Stay focused, stay consistent. When you miss one training, when you miss 3 trainings a week, type thing, how you can expect to get best results. So if I'm going to school and I miss 3 days out of 5, how am I going to get the best results? I'm not. So you need to learn that consistency is going to get you better results. So you got to ask yourself, do you want an A? Do you want a B? Do you want a C? Or do you want an F? If you want an F, don't go to school. You're going to get an F. Don't worry about it. You're going to get what you want. But if you want something, you got to go and get it. And you have to be consistent and be diligent about what you need to do to get there. So that's what it's all about.
So that's from the person aiming for the championship. What about the person coaching? What is required from their end?
From a coaching perspective, you have to have an open mind, and you can't look at one fighter as it worked for him, so it'll work for you. Every fighter is different, If you and I went to a restaurant, we may not like the same foods, but we're both going to eat because we need to eat, right? But we're not going to order the same foods because maybe you don't like what I'm eating, or maybe you like it too much or you eat too much of it, We're going to order different foods. We normally don't order the same. There's going to always be something different about what we order. And in coaching, it's going to be the same thing. Don't look at your fighter like he's the same as the other fighter. They're all different. You got to look at what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and you got to work on those. You got to build them, and then you're not going to know if you don't talk to them.
I think there's the same translation to parenting as well, because I mean, back in at least my day, it's people, you know, you raise your kids as all the same. Like, oh, they're all the same. All of my kids are the same, and I love them the same, and I treat them the same. And I mean, now we learn that that's so not fair, and it's not true. You know, the middle child's experience is very different to the younger child and the older child. So I mean, parenting is like coaching, right? The one-on-one version of parenting. What's your take on like the translation?
Well, what you says right now is that one of the reasons why I've used that. Because it's like parenting. I'll give you an example. I had one student, her name is Stephanie Cerna, and she was my first girl student ever. Her mother would bring her into me, and one day her mother comes to me and she says, I'm going to take Stephanie out of practice because she did something bad in school, and I'm going to, you know, so I got to punish her. And I looked at her mother. I said, okay, but why are you going to punish her something that's good for her? Something else, take something else from her, but don't take her away from here. This is positive mental training here. She's getting here. This is the best place for her to be, you know, so you should actually make her come here more because she's going to get a mental training here, physical and mental. This is the best type of thing. She's not going to be doing anything wrong. She's not going to be doing the things that you know that you don't know about. She's going to be doing exactly what you know about. She's going to be training. She's going to be working her body. She's going to be working her mental. So this is what she wants to be doing. So those are the kind of things I used, and that still to this day, Stephanie is become a fantastic mother, you know, and she learned, you know, the hard work and staying disciplined, you know, is what it needs to be. And she learned also from having bad husbands, you know, what it meant to, you know, to be a good person and what you need to do. So she's the mother and the father, but not like you'd ever be the father, but she takes both roles, and she does a fantastic job of it because she's mentally strong. She's there. She's put together, you know, so she's a fantastic mom.
Can you walk me through the day of what it looks like to train with you? Like someone walks into your gym, one of your fighters, from the beginning to the end, what does that day look like?
Well, for me, when the fighter comes to me, he's going to know everything. He's going to know if I teach him correct footwork, he's going to know why I'm teaching it, and he's going to understand it. And I'll look at him and I say, do you understand why this works this way and doesn't work that way? You know, he's going to know. I'm not just going to say, oh, no, this is the way it's done. No, it's going to be one of those things where this is the way we do it. If you feel, let's say, for instance, the fighter says, you know, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I would tell them, please let me know, because if you don't feel comfortable doing something, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. If I don't convince you this is the proper way to do it and you don't want to do it, you shouldn't do it. Let's work on something else. So I would do that with my fighters. I would say, hey, tell me something that I'm doing that you don't like. Even if it is right, tell me, because if you don't tell me, I'm going to work on something that's going to be a waste of time, because come fight time, you're not going to use it. I'd rather spend time on the things you love, the things you want to use, the things you feel comfortable with, than something I'm trying to get you to do. That's how you use it. And it works. Yeah.
I mean, I play paddle tennis, actually. And that's what my coach tells me. He's like, I'm not going to train you on the ABCs of what you could, like the different skills that you could use in paddle. What you're good at, what you find comfort in, I'm going to keep pushing on that more so than just teaching you all the ranges that you might not ever use. So I totally see that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the only difference is with your paddle, I'm sure he's teaching you all the others, so you have the knowledge.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But then he focuses on your strengths.
Exactly.
That's a good coach.
You had said this, and I think it's consistency, but if there's anything else that you could think of or give advice to somebody who is trying to make it in anything, be the best parent, be the best business, and the best in their business, the best in their sport, other than consistency.
Love. Love.
For who? For themselves, or
love
for the people
themselves,
around
love
them?
for their family, love for the person that you're going to do this for. Love. If you love your girlfriend and she wants to get married and she wants to have that home, she wants that car, she wants that lifestyle, that love should drive you to do the best you can to be the best provider and help her be the best provider she can be. You know, so that love is a powerful weapon, and it needs to be utilized. You know, it's not utilized enough. That love for your child should be the one reason why you listen to them and you listen to when they tell you they don't like this, they don't like that. And then you work with them on that. You work on the likes, you work on the dislikes. If you don't listen and you don't love them and you only listen to yourself, what good are you?
So what about people that don't have love in their home? Can they build out of revenge or out of proving a point? Do you think, not everybody's lucky to have love in their home. Maybe their parents don't show them love. They don't love themselves. They've gotten to a place where they don't believe they're deserving of things. Do you think that people could still build out of that place?
I did. I did. I built out of it. My father didn't show me love. How you show somebody love? You don't ask him how he did in school. You're sarcastic with him. You say you'll never be anything in your life. How do you get love from that? You don't. But I didn't do it with anger. I used it with motivation. I used it. Well, okay, I'm going to show you, but not anger. I was never angry at my father. Didn't hate him for it, but I wanted to prove him wrong. But not in an angry way, there you go. No. I wanted to be somebody. I didn't want to be a nobody. I wanted to be a somebody because my father didn't encourage me to be somebody. I wanted to be somebody. I didn't want to be that person that, he's just so-and-so. No. I wanted to stand out for myself.
And when you got there, what was your father's reaction to that?
Well, when I got there, my father became my biggest fan, but I didn't tell him till years after, that, why I don't hang out with him. I said, Dad, I go, I want to explain something to you, why I don't hang out with you, why I don't do things with you. I go, because when I was a kid, you never took me nowhere. You never took me to the movies. You never asked me how I did this. So I don't know what it's like to be with you. So please forgive me. I don't have anything. And he goes, yeah, I was a horrible father. I said, yeah, you were. I go, but you loved us because you brought us to the United States, and you gave us a better chance, an opportunity for a better life. So for that, I love you.
Relationships are earned, especially with parents. I feel like when you don't build that relationship, when your kids are still vulnerable and young and you're the bigger person, in due course, like you just said, you lose a relationship with your kids when you need them, right? When you want them to be there with you and to hang out with you. You don't know how to be friends with them anymore because they never showed you a friendship when you needed it the most. Yeah,
I got a perfect example for you how I used it with my brothers here. I have a brother here that he's telling, look, my son, he's my son, and this and that, and cute little boy, and this and that, but his son would not, be around him. And he's calling his son wouldn't come to him. They had one friend of mine that was with me, and he started playing with his son right away. And the son was all over my friend. And I pointed out to him, I go, you say you love your kid, right? He goes, yeah. I go, but then why is he gravitating to somebody that doesn't even know him? Why is he treating him better than he's treating you? You're not showing him love. You're saying the words, but you're not showing him. I go, so guess what? You're not being a great dad to your kid. And there shows in the results, and he started thinking about it. And I started telling him more about how he needs to be with his son and how he needs to show him, because I said, look, listen, if you're not here for him now, he's not going to be there for you later. So you need to understand that. So now to this day, he's in the Maldives right now with his son, spending 3 weeks there, spending time with his son. He puts his son on Instagram. He does things with his son. He shows him taking martial arts, and he sends me videos. He's so proud of his son, and he taught his son how to drive in the car with his lap. It's just a little plaything, But those are the type of things that his son,
he's going to remember.
Remember, and he talks to him. He calls him all the time, talks to his son. And now I said, now you're a father. Now you're a father. Now your son will always remember you. And I had another individual from here that I said, hey, I go, so how, he has 3 kids. And I said, how are you with your kids? He goes, I'm great with my youngest and the middle one, but my eldest I'm not so good with. I go, why? He goes, well, I don't know. I go, we don't do this. I go, you know why? You're not giving her the same kind of attention you're giving the young ones. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, you just told me you said you loved them. I go, do you ever tell the older one you love them? He said, yeah, maybe not. I go, maybe you should talk to her. Maybe you should see what's going on with her. I go, you're going to get pushback at the beginning because you haven't been there. You've been with the other ones, but not her. You need to be there for her, because if you're not there for her, trust me, she's not going to be there for you. She will not be there for you. So now I said, how's it going with your daughter? He goes, man, it's changing. It's changing. It's
awesome.
really changing. She's coming to me. She's calling me. She's asking me things. I go, there, because you're telling her you love her. You know, you're showing her care. You're showing her that you want to be her dad. And you'll always be her dad.
Beautiful. I love that so much. When you're coaching, let's say, employees or staff, how much of your skills that you just talked to me about and all those things of, let's say, love, which is probably very difficult when you're trying to show, someone that just works for you, vulnerability and love. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. But how much of it is actually true in the workforce as well, to keep people loyal to you, to keep people wanting to build with you?
Well, the love part is the difficult part because they're your employees, so you can't show the love
Not love
to them,
more so.
but you can show the love to the work. You can show the love to the work. You can show them how you love what they're doing, how they're doing the right job, and when they're not doing the job they need to do, you can explain to them in a nice way that maybe the alternative is we should try this because when we did that, this happens. When we did this, positive happens. So if you show your employee the negatives and the positives, and don't focus on the negatives too much, because then you're scolding them. You're telling them, you did this, you did that, rather than focus on, you did that, but let's pick it up here. Let's go here. Let's go in this arena. This caused positive results. So this is where we want to be. We don't want to be over here. We want to be here. So don't focus on the negative too much. Always focus on the positive, which is the love part. Do you love being a boss? Then you'll do the right thing. If you hate being a boss, then you're not going to care.
Yeah.
You're not going to care. You're going to go, you did a lousy job. Oh, you sucked. Because that's what some bosses do. They'll do that to you. But you know how demeaning that is for an employee? The boss doesn't care about you. The boss doesn't care how good you do. The boss doesn't care how well you looked coming in, dressed, or et cetera, how you greet your clients. The boss doesn't care any of that. Then why would you care if he doesn't care?
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
A huge lesson I learned from my business coach, actually, is he always asks everyone that he's trying to hire to his team, what is your 1 year, your 5 year, your 20-year goal? Assuming you don't work for me. What is your goal? What do you want from life? And then they start opening up because the assumption is that they're not going to work with him. And then he says, okay, cool. So let's say one of them said to him, I want to own a beehive one day. I know it's irrelevant to this business, but I love the idea of owning like a bee hive or a bee, whatever, And he's like, okay, I'm going to make that happen. As long as you show results within the next 5 years, I will make sure to make that happen for you. And he says the logic behind his approach is if he feeds into their goals and shows them that I am there for you to help you and feed into your goals, I will be doing that as long as you're helping feed into my goals as the company. And then most of his employees never leave him. They stay with him for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, because they feel like he's feeding into them as much as they're feeding into him. And I think most of the issue or most of the problem is most people that run companies think that the people working their companies are only supposed to feed into their goals and they don't need to ask about the others,
Yes.
So I think that's a really important approach. And everything you said actually reminded me so much of what he's taught me too. That if you work from a place of understanding and compassion and love and empathy and, try to get the best out of them, why would they leave?
They wouldn't unless they needed to.
Yeah.
Or the advancement, they've done their tour of duty, I guess you can say, and now they graduated and now they're going to another arena where they're making a lot more money, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the good part. That's the part where you applaud them and you give them a hug and you stay family forever. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, of course not. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So coming to the end of the show. The show is called What They Don't Tell Us. So if there is one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known before, that would have helped you maybe get ahead as a coach or, in what you know now, what is it? What don't they tell us?
The one thing I mentioned already that I do know now as a coach is the number one thing is you're the leader. You're responsible for them. You're responsible for everything that happens with them. You have to know even if you don't know. And you take responsibility for them. So whenever something happens, you're there with them. and you're the person that takes the dagger. Yeah, that's one thing I learned, and it really has helped me, because now I don't shift the blame on them. It's on me. What did I do that I could have prevented what happened? So that's why I look at.
That's amazing. One more thing I missed that I want to talk about. Is it true that you're training Sheikh Maktoum?
Yes,
You
I'm
are?
training Sheikh Maktoum. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He guy hits he is right at the present time power. This guy has so much power. Oh my gosh, he has so much power. It's crazy power this guy has. He is right now probably the third hardest puncher I've ever had in my whole entire life as
What?
coach. Yeah. And he's never gonna fight. Don't get me wrong, but his talent is very good. But his power is off the charts. It's crazy power.
What's his consistency here?
Well, the thing about him, he's mentally super strong. He says, when I'm in here, coach, I'm yours. Whatever you say, I do. He does exactly that. Even when the bell rings and he's super tired, I don't tell him to stop. He won't stop. He won't stop until I tell him stop. And if I say one more, he'll do one more. Whatever I tell him to do, he'll do. He's so mentally strong, and his ability to do and be guided. And he also loves to teach too. He's a natural born teacher. He loves to teach, loves it very much.
Teach what?
Like what I teach him. And he likes teaching other things. Like when he's done with the training with me, and I go into the gym to lift, he's back there trying to help me with lifting too, and he's so good at it too. He's such a good teacher, and I like working out in the morning, so I hint, I avoid him because I like just training, but he's fantastic at that. And man, I'm telling you, I showed Anthony Joshua, the world boxing champion. He's one of the greats, and I showed him a video when he was at their Majlis, and I went up to him. I crawled up to him, and he didn't know that Sheikh Maktoum was the person I was showing the video of. And I showed Anthony Joshua, and he looked at this, and Anthony Joshua goes, "Does he want to fight?" I said, "No, he's right next to you." He goes, "Oh."
Oh, really? You didn't know it was him?
No, we didn't know it was him. So when you get a world champion, not just any world champion, one of the greats in boxing, get impressed with your power, that's pretty good. Because this is a world champion. So I was thinking maybe it's just me trying to stroke his ego. I think it wasn't, but I just wanted affirmation that I was right. So I showed it to him, and I was right. His eyes sold me. I was right.
Wow.
He's special. He has special power.
He'll never fight, really?
No.
Not even for fun, sparring?
No, I wouldn't even let him spar. No,
okay,
no,
so
I
just
won't.
coaching.
Yeah, he can just coach. I don't want him to spar nobody because he hits too hard, and since he's never done it, I'm afraid that he'll hurt himself or he's going to hurt someone else. More likely he's going to hurt someone else, because you have to be pretty high level to deal with that kind of power. And why he don't need to deal with that. He don't deal with that. So I don't want him to do that.
What are your plans in the UAE, and where can people find you?
The plans for the UAE is I'm going to meet the Minister of Sports next week, and I'm going to talk about bringing a gym here, and I want to talk about building a fight team here. I'm going to talk about the Global Fight League team. I'm the head coach for a new organization that's called Global Fight League. I'm the head coach for Team Dubai. We're called the Dubai Falcons. So I want to talk to him about that. So right now, no one can find me anywhere, but eventually at one point there'll be a gym here in Dubai where they can find me. And people that want to fight, they can come to me then, so.
You start with students, like kids? Or older?
It's for everybody. It's for students, but the kids are not going to be involved in fighting. They'll be involved in training, martial arts, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, MMA, but not fighting. Kids shouldn't be fighting. But they can do the training. They can do the wrestling. They can do jiu-jitsu. They can do all that. And adults to women, husband, wives, lawyers, doctors. It's for everybody, but not the fighting. Fighting is a very 1%. It's the 1%ers.
So everybody trains except the ones that are handpicked to be able to fight.
Yeah, that's different. They're different. Everybody can train. You can train.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're ever going to want to be, sparring with Khabib or anything like that. Never.
You never know.
Well, you never know.
I'll take up the offer.
But you know what I'm saying. It's
totally.
not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's only for select few.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed this conversation and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.